Welcome to the Multiverse Fundraiser. I'm Kelly Guentner, and we have Mark Weiss with us.
Well, good evening, Kelly. Welcome, everyone, to the 2026 annual version of this event. We're very much appreciative of all of you being here with us.
Thank you. It feels weird to say 2026. My brain's still.
Did you catch my pause there when I said it? Because I had a.
You're like, what year is it?
Well, yeah, I just think about that myself.
Well, it is a tradition for you to start off the night. So let's start off by, before we get into the topic of this panel, let's start off by talking about what Comic Books for Kids is about.
Thanks, Kelly. So there really is no discussion about what we are today without really going back a little bit to where this started and how this came about. But this really begins our 9th year as an organization. And when I first started this, I mean, the thought for this organization, and it's talk about saying 2026, the thought for this organization was 10 years ago, where we wanted to do something on behalf of the kids. Forget the troops, which we'll talk about as well as time goes on, right? But the initial thought was that Mark here had lots of comic books and wanted to donate them to clear out some space and was looking really for an organization that Mark could donate these to. And I couldn't find any. My conclusion, my Google search skills just really were abysmal because there had to be an organization out there, right? So in not finding any, we thought we would just put something together. And even then, the thought was, we'll create a charity to help kids in hospitals. But at this point, I have no inventory. I have no hospitals. I have no money. It's a thought bubble. So let's just do something and we'll figure it out. And I'll do this a couple days a week for a couple hours and we'll make a slight difference. That was then, right? Jumping to today, we're the largest charity in the world for comics and pop culture items to kids in hospitals and cancer centers. We have a branch in the UK. We have a sister charity called Comic Book for Troops, which is all the largest charity in the U.S. for these same items to all branches of the military. And what was going to be a day or 2 days a week is now a 60-hour day, 60-hour week. 60-hour day, it feels like it sometimes. No, a 60-hour week. But there's nothing, honestly, that I'd rather do than this. And to summarize or encapsulate this all in an answer for those of you who are learning about us for the first time, we have a 12 to 1,400 square feet space, indoor space. We provide materials to children in hospitals. Our boxes are about 16 by 12 by 12, so they each weigh about 35 to 40 pounds. Inside our boxes, we put comic books, we put graphic novels, we put children's books, we put action figures, we put toys. We can even put small little games in there. We'll put Hot Wheels in there. This year, we've added Legos. So
that's amazing.
You can see that this is really very much a pop culture give, and in many ways is reflective of what you might see in a comic store. So we're bringing the comic store to the kids in the hospitals.
And we already have a viewer saying hello. So that's Joseph Essett is saying hello. Hi, Joseph. Got a lot of people popping in. I'm just watching the numbers. So we've got a lot of people watching. So hello, everyone. And I wanted to say it's great that you're including Legos because the Ronald McDonald House that I visit regularly in Milwaukee, they have like a really nice Lego station. And the kids just love Legos.
So as you get older, it's really never good to learn your deficiencies.
I feel that.
I already know many of mine. Can I just say, I was always the guy that whenever I would put models together would have parts left over.
Yeah, same.
Okay, so, but what we do with Legos, and this is really, really cool. We could not get Lego Corp to work with us and we tried, and this is really not a reflection on Lego Corporation. There are literally over 1 million charities in the United States. Okay, now we're in the top 0.1% because of our ranking, but we went out and wanted to get Lego-like materials, and we were able to find these things that the hospitals absolutely love, and they're little Lego little eggs, dinosaurs, and they're self-contained, and they're very, very cool. And we bought thousands of these, and then we went to a store, and they have them here in the Midwest. I don't know if they're national, but there's a store called Five Below.
Oh, I love Five Below.
Okay, so then so Five Below has these Lego kits for $1. I'm not kidding. They're $1, and they're retro items. So you can get a cassette player, or you can get roller skates. So we went out and bought several hundred of those. Our next shipment's going out in March, and for the very first time, there's going to be Lego dinosaurs and these Five Below things. So each hospital is going to get a handful of Lego items, and our plan is, I'm not going to say plan, what we're going to do is have these Lego items in our boxes throughout the year, on top of everything else. I don't know if you've heard of Squishmallows.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I have kids.
Which is what I thought. All right. And I mean, the name of the company is Jazzwares, and they create the Squishmallows. For those of you watching at home, they're these adorable little plush things that just squish down, hence the names. But they also have these things, and this is the cutest thing ever, called mini squishes, which are about that big. And so they just sent us, and if you take a look at our Facebook, we've kind of posted on our Facebook these 25 packs of mini squish-alongs. Oh. And so each hospital is going to get a box of a 25 pack of these mini squishmallows. So squish-alongs. So we've really, as an organization, come a long way. And why? And I'll tell you why. It's because look at the people here. This is not us. I mean, I've always said, the secret behind every boxer, every sports figure, are the people behind them that support them, the trainers, the nutritionists, the coaches. The secret behind a charity like ours are the great people who are watching us here today, because we couldn't do it without them. I mean, I'm happy to be the face of this organization, but the reality is it's the adoption from these great people who allow us to continue to do what we do that lets us continue.
I completely agree. Everyone who tunes in, who shares, who donates, who volunteers to help give out items, those people are they all contribute to helping. And most people do it because they know someone who has been impacted by childhood illness, or they know someone who's had cancer, and they think, wow, if I know someone as an adult who's had cancer, I can't imagine what it would be like being a child going through cancer.
There is this year we worked again with DC Comics, and
which is amazing.
Chrissy Zullo is a wonderful, wonderful artist and did the Supergirl cover. And shame on me, but I promise the next time I'm on, which, will probably be in 30 minutes or so for the next session, with the Super Pets. Now, she did one last year, which I do have, which is adorable, which was, let's see if we can hold this one up. Yeah, we can. So
Oh,
it's you know
so cute.
it's adorable. So the Supergirl one literally connects right here. And it makes one picture, and it's Supergirl with the super pets. And so we did that. And I got an email. This was right around Christmas time. And it was a picture of a little girl wearing a Supergirl cape with her mom and dad. And it says, "Hi, this is a shot in the dark. But this is my daughter. Her name is Kara Zora, named after Supergirl Kara Zor-El.
I love it.
And she's wearing her cape that she wore during her surgery. She has something called 22q, and I'll get into what that is. Can we buy the Supergirl cover from you?" So I looked up 22q and a little bit of history here, because I had to educate myself a bit. But the human body has trillions of cells. Every cell has chromosome pairs of 23 chromosomes, for the most part. Not every, but most do. And 22q is a disease where the 22nd chromosome is missing some DNA. And when that happens, it really impacts, and there's other names for that disease as well, really impacts a child's development and causes a myriad of situations where she's had multiple surgeries all before the age of 5.
Oh my
Now,
gosh.
we don't sell our books. That was a deal with DC. Okay, we give them to kids in hospitals. So we decided to do something a little bit fun for this little girl. We went to our indoor unit, and I grabbed 2 of the covers for the little girl. And then I grabbed the Super Pets coloring book that we had.
Oh.
And then I grabbed the Pokemon plush that we had. And then I grabbed some other toys that we had. And by the time I was done, it was a pretty nice box. But that wasn't the best part, because inside the box was a letter, and it said the following: "Hi, Kara. Guess what? That's my name too.
Oh.
I was just feeding the Super Pets when I saw the letter from your mommy and your daddy. Well, we have some fun things for you, and we hope you have a wonderful Christmas or holiday. Thanks for being our best fan. Signed, Kara Zor-El." And we mailed it to her.
I love that.
We got a note back from Mom saying, "Thank you. You made her day." And this is like, the people who are listening to me are going to not like me now, because this is like the cliffhanger that makes people stay to the next session. Mom sent me pictures of Kara with those items, so I can send them to you if you can find a way to perhaps post them.
Oh yeah.
And so what we'll do is I'll get them to you before the end of this section. This session's over, and I'll bring it up a little bit again at the beginning of the next, and you can post the pictures of Kara holding her Chrissy cover and all the stuff that we sent her. This is what we do. This is who we are. Our mission is kids in hospitals, but let's be real here. If we can make a child smile by impacting their lives with pop culture items that have meant so much to us, which is why we're on, why we do this,
yes,
and all the great people who are attending are doing, then we've achieved our objective. And this is why we do what we do. Last year, I think I told the Batman story, or a time before that. You mean, and I know, Kelly, you've heard me say it live in our events. So
you should still tell it again for anyone who hasn't heard it. It's a great story.
It is probably one of my favorite stories, and it goes on to illustrate the impact that an organization can have, or how there's business terms called force multiplier when something becomes more than the sum of its parts, right? And really supersizes the mission. This is something that we didn't do but enabled, and yet it's still my favorite story because it goes to because it wouldn't have happened had we not existed. And we don't know how many of these stories are out there, but let me share the story with you. It was several years ago, actually. And I received a phone call from a gentleman in St. Louis. And the gentleman said, Mark, hi, I live in St. Louis and I want to donate some comics to my local hospital. Can you help? Yeah, okay. I mean, what's your local hospital? Because I think I ship to them anyway. So, I mean, I appreciate you wanting to help and I want your help, but just tell me a little bit more and what you're thinking of doing. And he says, well, I'm working on something. Let me get back to you. Okay, great. So he calls me back and he says, I want to do something really, really fun. I want to dress up in a costume and I'm not sure which. And this was, so, I mean, I said a few years ago, it's longer than that because this was right before COVID. And he said, I want to dress up in some type of costume and bring comics and give them to the child. And I said, okay, that's great. Yeah, I mean, it's cosplay. It's very similar. You're going to need the approval of the local hospital, but we'll see what we can do. So he goes, can you get me some comics? Well, there was a publisher in St. Louis at the time. They were called Lion Forge Comics. They have since been acquired by a different publisher. So I called them and said, look, there's a gentleman that, again, I want to be clear, is not part of our organization, but wants to make a difference for kids in your town, in your city, in your local hospital. So what I love about this is you got an all St. Louis thing going. You got a company in St. Louis that he works with, working with you as a publisher, wanting to do something in the hospital. Can you give him some books? Again, I want to make it clear, this is not a donation to me. I cannot give you a donation receipt. I mean, if we really need to, I could bring him on as a volunteer for a day, but I really want to be clear. He's not our organization. I said, don't worry about it. We'll take care of him.
Uh-oh. It's a ripple effect.
I mean, and this is the industry we're working, the kindness of the people in the industry. The gentleman calls me back and he goes, Mark, I have a better piece of news for you. My company has agreed to let me buy a Batman costume so I can go to the hospital as Batman. I said, well, I got some great news for you too, because I talked to this publisher called Lion Forge and they are all set for you to go get materials. I believe you. I know you've already talked with the hospital and cleared yourself. Yes, yes, and yes. Okay, great. One request of you. Before you walk in the doors of that hospital, I want you to call me. It's going to be a quick call. I just want a quick phone call. He said, well, Mark, it's going to be this Saturday. And today was that on that day I was calling him, was it Tuesday or Wednesday? I don't remember which. So give me a call. He goes, it'll be around noon. I said, great. Saturday comes around, phone rings a few minutes before noon. Hey, Mark, I'm ready to go. I'm dressed as Batman. People are checking me out outside the hospital. It's really kind of cool, actually. I'm carrying all these swag bags, and it's pretty awesome. Any last words for me? I said, this is going to impact you in ways you can't imagine. And I don't, he goes, what do you mean? I go, I don't know. But I promise you, it's something will occur to you that will touch your heart in a way that you've never expected or anticipated. And Kelly, for those watching who don't know, you have an alter ego yourself, because you yourself are a superhero and have done a little bit of that. So
I've been doing it for like 15 years now.
Well, so you started when you were 2. Congratulations.
Bless you.
Thank you for doing that. So the gentleman dressed up as Batman takes his swag bags, walks into the first room, gives the child the bag of comics. This is cool stuff, man. This is easy. walks out, goes into the second room and sees a mother by the side of the bed, and you can see a child in the bed. So he walks up with the bag, and as he gets close, the mother looks at his child and looks at him, starts screaming, crying, screaming, and runs out of the room into the hallway crying. And he said, and he said, I've been in this hospital now all of 5 minutes. And I've totally done something completely wrong. I've screwed this up. Here's mom's crying, and she puts her hand on my shoulders like this. I still have my Batman mask on. And I look at her and I said, I'm sorry. I don't know what I did. I'm sorry. And she stops and she goes, no, you don't understand. She said, my son has been in this hospital bed for 2 months and hasn't said a single word until you walked in. He said, still as Batman, I'm shaking my head. What happened? She looked at me and she said, when you walked in, he looked at me and said, Mommy, that's Batman. You are the first words my son has said in 2 months. Thank you. And he said to me on the phone, never, I know you told me that this was going to affect me, but never could I have ever imagined what this did for me. And I mean, I'm going to other rooms after that, but I'm still.
Having the cowl helps.
I mean, he did say, thank goodness I had the cowl, because my eyes were just a little bit moist and I was having a hard time seeing where I was going. But it's an amazing story. It's nothing that we did. We enabled it. And because we're an organization, we created the environment for that to happen. So I'm honored by that. But my favorite story is something that we did not do, that was done as a result of this organization in existence. But it also showcases the message that to a child in a hospital bed, was that really Batman in that child's eyes? Did it really matter? In that moment, it was Batman, and it was taking that child away from the room and the trauma that that child had faced. And for that moment, Batman was there for him. And that's what we have learned in doing comic book for kids, is that this mission provides items that take a child away from their hospital bed, and they can play with the toy, they can do the Legos as we've talked, they can color in a coloring book, they can read children's books, graphic novels, comic books, they can be any character they want. And we hear story after story from doctors and nurses and parents. Thank you, Thomas, of difference that it makes.
Those characters are so powerful. Those stories are so powerful. And stories have the power to change your world. Like,
correct.
They're powerful for kids and adults.
Now, Kelly, I always enjoy saying hello and starting this off. I also recognize that the first panel, and there could be people here that are saying, Mark, we've seen you before. We really want to hear about monsters. Okay, so thanks, Mark, but we'd really like to talk monsters.
Well, I do want to take a moment to say hello to some of our other commenters. So we have Bobby5951, we have Clyde Hall, and I want to share some good news. We started off with a bang. The fundraiser is off to a great start. We've already raised $613 before we even started the first panel.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. That's
That's incredible. That's incredible. I mean, to put things in perspective, we ship to all 50 states and Canada. We ship to Hawaii. We ship to Alaska. One box to Hawaii, is $100. One box. One box to Alaska, $100. So right then and there, I've got pictures on social media of my 2 boxes. There's $200 in shipping going right there. Yeah, it's priority because you can't send it regular mail because it's got to go airmail.
Yeah.
So this is wonderful. This makes so much of a difference for us. So thank you. Before we talk monsters, should we see if there's any questions before we do that, Kelly? What do you think?
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, comments are open. So definitely hit us with it. What I'm going to do actually is roll our little pre-recorded ad for you and what we're doing here. Oh, and we have a DL. Welcome, DL.
Oh, I think I popped in too early.
No, you're here.
You're right on time.
You're right on time. I was just gonna roll the ad for comic books for kids, and then we can get to talking monsters. DL, this is Mark Weiss.
And DL,
hi, how are you?
Listen, I'm super excited. I want to hear about monsters myself. It's why I'm here. So thank you for doing this.
I'm so glad you're here.
Glad to help
Thank
out.
you. So yeah, let's roll our spiel.
The Multiverse Fundraiser is partnering with Comic Books for Kids to raise money for their cause. Their mission is to provide comic books to children in hospitals and cancer centers across the United States, Canada, and the UK. We believe in the importance of providing stories that promote hope and bravery to kids who are facing things that are scarier than any supervillain. And we truly believe in this cause. To donate, you can either go to our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/The Multiverse Fundraiser or directly to comicbooksforkids.org.
All right. So first of all, let me move something around so our logo is not blocking DL's lovely face.
I'm going to scoot back because I look like I'm right on the camera.
Oh, actually here. That's better.
That's better. That's good.
Yeah, it's all about the arrangements. So welcome, DL Memphis.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Oh, I'm so excited. DL is just a super talented cosplayer, creator. She knows her monsters. She knows her horror. And we're going to have fun. So what I wanted to talk about tonight is basically the fact that every horror monster has a lot more going on below the surface and a lot more interpretations than you might think. It's not just about the cheap thrills and screams. There's always layers to it.
Well,
so,
I'm here to learn because this is new to me. Okay, I'm just thinking Frankenstein, Dracula, and all these creatures of the Lost Lagoon are just scary things to watch. So consider me a newbie on this topic.
Oh yes.
So I actually love the idea that you presented when we were discussing kind of what we were wanting to talk about for this particular broadcast. And monster theory is one of those topics that I am truly passionate about. And I think that we're seeing things circle back around now and realizing the cultural climate and realizing which monsters are coming into effect deeply impact the way that we view literature, but in cinema, TV. And so I'm excited to have this conversation.
Me too. Can we start with vampires? That's what I have first on my list.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that vampires are a wonderful example of monster theory. In fact, because it originated out of an era where you had a lot of sexual repression, and you're seeing a highly sexualized character, not necessarily in its original format, but as we progress, it's gotten more and more sexualized, and it's become less monstrous, more beautiful.
Agreed. They kind of started where people were afraid of death, and so vampires started as a way to cope with that anxiety. But then it eventually became about the immortality factor, excuse me, and the forbidden desire, the sexuality. And I also wanted to get into a few specifics because there's a couple of vampires that are a little different that I wanted to talk about. So first of all, I have some thoughts about the Buffyverse vampires that I have not seen discussed anywhere. And
all right, let's talk Buffy.
Buffy is my jam. Like, that was my first fandom. So first of all, of course, Buffy, the show in general, was all about, or it started out as a metaphor for high school. So the monsters were really the things you experience in high school. But as you get deeper into the lore, it's about growing up. And it's really interesting because the vampire lore is all over the place. And I think there's a reason for it. So this is my big Buffy takeaway. And maybe I'm giving the writers too much credit. So in the beginning, the Slayer is told, Buffy is told that vampires, when a person dies and is turned into a vampire, a demon takes up residence in their body and that person is dead. Their soul is gone. But we see throughout the show that that is wrong. That remnants of who that person was remain. It's just the demon kind of merges with that person's personality. And my theory there is that Buffy was making a commentary on how people in charge will tell you one thing, and they will basically, if they want to use you as a weapon, specifically the Slayer is their weapon that they're pointing at an enemy, they will dehumanize your enemy.
So basically, vampire lore for specifically Buffy is an abuse of power. Because you have, I mean, if you think about it, you have this group of watchers that are training them. And at first you really think there's only the one. And that when the new Slayer comes into place, a new watcher comes. And that's not the case. There's a council that basically oversees all of this and even dictates to the authority figure what they're supposed to be doing and how they're supposed to react in situations. So it is a topic that is very much discussing the abuse of power, but it's also very reactive. She and Giles are the only ones, I think, that are proactively thinking about how things will impact Sunnydale, specifically where they're located at. And I think that's a great analysis of what the whole concept of the Vampire Slayer and the Watchers really are. I do also kind of like the idea that you mentioned that vampires are depicted as being soulless, but they're not really, because there's the whole season where Angel regains his soul and loses his soul and becomes evil. It's been a hot minute since I've watched Buffy, but the soul depicts how he interacts specifically with her. And at one point he becomes extremely evil, kind of relying back on his older days when he was a bit more vicious and prone to attack and kill humans versus the neutered version that we get of him in the show. So no, I think that's wonderful.
Can I just give you a little bit of tidbit, even though since you're a Buffy fan, you may know this, but the character Spike was only supposed to be on for a couple episodes.
Yes.
You knew that.
Oh, yeah. Joss Whedon was not happy that he became a fan favorite.
Not at all. That's my contribution.
And what's amazing.
That's it. I'm out. I'm sorry. I'm good. That's it.
No. And what's amazing is that he is still regarded as one of the best vampire characters. I think there are people who love the Angel aspect of it because, I mean, Angel and Spike were two totally different sides of the spectrum. You had this
Mhm.
dark, brooding version of Angel, but you had Spike, who was very over the top and energetic. As for which one looked more like what I would pick, I would say Angel, but personality wise, 100% Spike. I mean, he was amazing. I love that character.
It's hilarious. It's very snarky. And the interesting thing is they both got their souls in show lore, and the way it was reflected, it didn't change Spike as much as a vampire. There was at one point one character who could detect the humanity in vampires, and he looks at like Spike and Spike's vampire girlfriend and was like, you two still have tons of humanity. So it's interesting that whereas he looks at Angel, the soulless version of Angel, is like, you have no humanity. So it's interesting that the watchers kind of tell that lie.
On the other hand, do you guys remember Spike's mate, the girl,
Drusilla?
Complete evil, 100% evil, with an incredible acting job. She one of my favorite characters from that show. But you knew if you saw Drew, it was not going to be good for the person that was anywhere near Drew if that person was a human. That was a completely evil depiction of the vampire.
But the character I was talking about, the character that could sense the humanity, still said that Drusilla had some humanity in her just because she had a twisted kind of love for Spike. She was very evil.
She was incredible. She was incredible. But you always saw the humanity coming through in that show. And I think was always clear. And was it the first season of Angel where she didn't want to fall in love with him, but she found herself finding him, wanting to perceive the evil in him, and yet seeing the goodness, seeing the warmth, seeing that there was something more than an inherent evil in that.
I think so. Okay.
And I love the fact that when you talk about Drusilla and her, because I mean, when you think about vampires and you think about the soullessness, you know, we're thinking about humanity in general, and whether or not we like it, some humans are just nothing but pure evil. So even in death, that's a reflection of her personality. But I also feel like you can't talk about her without talking about her fragility. She is very broken, but still very powerful. She's depicted as being somewhat meek and mild, but she's still the most vicious person in the room.
Correct.
And I kind of love that because it depicts a strong female character, and we're allowed to be mean and vicious if the situation calls for it.
I agree. And just moving on to a completely different vampire take on vampires, Sinners.
Ooh.
Yeah. So when I first watched it, so I had to read some deep dives because at first I'm like, okay, the vampirism. Mark, have you seen Sinners?
Twice.
Okay. So at first I'm like, when the vampires kill people, they become vampires right away. That is too fast. It makes no sense for vampire lore. But then I was reading more into it about how it's actually a metaphor for colonialism. I'm like, okay, duh. That makes so much sense as to why they did it that way, because the vampire being drawn to the black soul music, and then they're singing a lynching song to try to get in, and the fact that just it's violent and they overtake people and they just bring them into their hive mind. It's a metaphor for colonialism. That's brilliant.
And I think it speaks volumes that you have a vampire movie that is set in the era that it is, and it is depicted as being in the South. Because, it does, when you start thinking about vampirism, one of the things that people don't necessarily associate with it is that there is an element of racism, because it is a species that people are generally trying to either eradicate or convert or become part of. So I think that there's a lot to be said about about just the overall feel of that movie and when it was placed. And when you look at where we are now and the fact that there is so much push against the government, the people who are in charge, I think that is a major factor in why this movie was as successful as it was. Not to mention, I mean, just honestly, it was so beautifully done. I cannot talk enough about how just incredible it was to watch that, and then to realize that's one person. That's one person playing both characters. And it was absolutely stunning the way that he did that. I'm sorry, I'm kind of rambling about the cinematography at this point.
Oh, no. Michael B. Jordan wore shoes that were too tight for one of the twins and too loose for the other to change his walk.
Absolutely. You were probably reading the same thing that I was when there was the actress that played Annie was talking about how he would actually even hold his face, that he doesn't naturally have dimples, but one of the characters has dimples, and it was all in the way that he was holding his face and muscle structure.
Wow.
And she was talking about, oh no, I agree, that's incredible, because I can't even figure out how in the heck you would do that. That I can't imagine trying to. I'm like, how do you create a dimple where a dimple is not there? I've been trying to figure out how to get rid of this one forever. But she was also discussing the flow, about how you saw so many different mannerisms between the two. And sometimes those mannerisms were very subtle, but she at no point thought that she was interacting with Smoke when she was interacting with Stack, and vice versa. She said that it was so deliberate in the way that he did it, that it was just absolute perfection. And she sometimes thought to herself, is this really two people? There's going to be a day when people are going to be like, oh no, he had a twin. He had to have a twin.
Right. It's crazy. DL, what's a vampire movie or TV show that you would choose to talk about?
Actually, I am very partial to Dracula. It's one of the originals. It is not the original, but it does set a lot of the lore, and we still see it being redone over and over and over. I can't even think about, you have so many versions of Dracula that's told under the name Dracula, but you also have other versions that you find out kind of in the middle of the movie. Oh wait, this is Dracula. This is 100% Dracula. The Invitation was a good example of that. Where you're sitting there and you're putting all the pieces together, and you're like, oh, they're in Fairfax Alley or Abbey, and they are talking, and you're kind of putting all of the bits and pieces together, and then you're like, oh wow, this is Dracula. And no matter what the era is, it seems to be appropriate timing. There never seems to be a time when Dracula does not fit into the narrative.
This is kind of an aside, but I don't know if any of you have seen the anime Castlevania.
Yes. That's incredible.
And they could have done a spin-off on just the vampires, because they were terrible on here, fleshed out in such ways that you really understood their motivation. They became fascinating characters. And it resonated today, no matter what time frame, and even the follow-on episodes, which follow the lineage, are incredibly well done. Also tied to the lore of Dracula.
And I love the fact that it is it was a series, so you were able to put more time and energy into developing the characters, as opposed to like a general movie about Dracula. You only have a certain amount of time that you can tell the story. And it's sometimes very difficult if you've read the book and then you go back and you watch the movie and you realize how much of the book is actually missing, because you can't get into somebody's head that clearly without having a narrator talking over the entire production. Yes. So the one that I really am very interested in talking about is the one that it seems to be extremely popular right now, and that would be Frankenstein.
Yes.
There seems to be a huge resurgence of just the Frankenstein tale, whether it is the new movie that just recently came out, which, by the way, somebody described to me as um, Gothic dessert. And I was like, oh my God, that is a beautiful depiction of it because it was so gorgeous. But I'm also very anxious to see The Bride coming out in
It looks
March.
good.
The Bride of Frankenstein is one of my absolute favorite characters. And when you're looking at this new version, I am very anxious because it seems to be a separation away from what we know of the character.
DL, I wasn't aware of this. Is that Guillermo del Toro as well? Is it a follow-on?
It's
Actually, no, this is
Oh, sorry, The Bride. Yeah, go on.
Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Oh,
Gyllenhaal?
okay.
Gyllenhaal? Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm
Gyllenhaal.
very Gyllenhaal. Thank you. I always mispronounce that one, but yes, I'm very anxious to see that one just because she has a very distinct interpretation, and the fact that it's looks like it's set in the 1930s, and it's not so much a monster movie in appearance as it is a Bonnie and Clyde type romp. I mean, it looks beautiful.
It looks really fun.
And one of the things that I'm really truly fascinated with the resurgence of Frankenstein is a story about basically technology and environmentalism in the modern era. And as we progress, it keeps changing. And I cannot help but feel like we're seeing Frankenstein reemerge now because of so many fears associated with AI.
Yes.
And that seems to be a topic that I'm hearing more and more about. In the environment that I work in, I'm in a university environment, and there are AI courses. There's an AI minor coming out. So we know it's not going away, and it's integrated into everything. But at some point, we're also telling people, don't use it. Don't rely on it. It should be a helper, not a crutch. It should be a tool that you use, but you don't completely rely on. And we're also seeing complete industries almost being annihilated because of it. So there is that huge fear of what's coming in association with AI. And I think that that's very telling now that we're seeing all of these versions of Frankenstein.
We're also seeing a lot of ethics concerns with various AI things, which Frankenstein is very much about scientific ethics.
Absolutely.
But also at its heart, it's a story of a son having father issues or just someone dealing with being separated from their creator and why was I made? And the Guillermo del Toro version ripped my heart out. Like that line where the creature is so innocent. He loves Victor. The only thing he can say is Victor for weeks and weeks. And then Victor abandons him, tries to kill him, and chains him up, sets the house on fire. And he's like, I yelled your name. And at that moment, I knew I was alone. Oh my God. Like, oh. So it's about the loss of naivety also.
And when you watch that movie, one of the things that really stood out for me is when you're in the laboratory, the giant portrait carving of Medusa. And it's one of those things where I've had conversations with people, and they don't always realize that Frankenstein and Medusa share a very common storyline, in that it is a monster or something perceived as a monster that actually has a heart and soul. And it's more depicted on appearance than it is on who the actual person or who that person actually is. But you do see a lot of that throughout the Guillermo del Toro version that I thought was stunning.
Oh yeah, and the costumes, the way the costumes all just subtly communicated what was going on. Oh, the costume work was amazing. Like I could spend hours talking about that movie, which I will not because we have 7 minutes left. So
So I got one for you guys because I am of that age where when I was a wee lad in school, I would run home from school because there was a TV show on called Dark Shadows.
Ooh, yes.
I
You're speaking
am
Dio's
a
language.
huge fan of Dark Shadows and Jonathan Frid. The one thing that absolutely devastated me is there used to be a Dark Shadows festival. I don't know if it's still in existence.
Right.
And he would make appearances there for years until he passed. And my brother and I, so one of my very first jobs is I worked for Blockbuster Video. And that dates me. And you were, as an employee, allowed to get 2 free rentals every night, every day. So I would bring home Dark Shadows when everybody else was like clamoring to get Titanic. I'm like, oh no, we're going to watch all of the Dark Shadows. I have the entire series on DVD at this point, including the pre-Barnabas phase before they introduced him. But absolutely one of my favorites.
I'm Victoria Winters. Yep, that's how it started.
You would think that I could remember and quote that as many episodes as I've watched, but it's kind of one of those things. After you watch it, you kind of put it aside for a few minutes. And I've tried to go back and watch it with specifically my 2 daughters. And it's funny how ridiculous the special effects were, but how genuinely interesting the storyline was. I love Victoria Winters, but also Maggie Evans was one of my favorites.
Yep.
And Angelique. So many years ago, I had the opportunity to meet her at a book signing for one of her here in Memphis. And she was absolutely amazing, stunning, and just such a very lovable personality. It's hard to see her now as that deranged witch from Dark Shadows when you know what she's really like. She's super sweet.
That's good acting then.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But that's one of those things that my brother and I used to, it was kind of one of our bonding moments. We were both living at home at the time, and I would come home with these videos, and we would sit and we would watch 5 episodes on a video. So basically 10 episodes a night. And as you can imagine, I was young. We would stay up all night long watching these things, and I fell in love with it. But sometimes it's hard to go back and revisit. But I think that was a wonderful storyline. And if you can find them and watch them, I highly recommend it.
All right, DL, let's bring you into the 80s, okay? I mean, we're going to move forward a little bit. And the king of pop, Michael Jackson, decides to do this video that took over the world.
Yeah. I love I actually watched something very recently where the choreographer was able to instruct a group of what appeared to be high school students on how to do the dance. And they looked so into it because I have a daughter who is in her early 20s. And when you start talking about things from like the 80s, she's like, boring. But that is still one of those videos that's just fascinating to watch. And you realize he made this little mini movie.
Yes, he did.
In the 80s for MTV.
It was crazy. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, MTV does still exist. Like that rumor went around. They still exist. They just don't play videos like they did, which is sad.
Oh, I thought they completely went away. I thought it was completely gone now.
Yeah, that was a rumor that went around on social media, but apparently they still are in existence. It was like one of their channels because they have like multiple MTV channels, but MTV is still airing. None of us are watching because they're not playing music videos though, so it doesn't matter.
So, what is it about? Because I mean, it's a very distinctive storyline when you think about the video itself. Obviously,
Yes.
werewolf. What is it about the video itself that caught your attention, Mark, and made you just gravitate to it?
I remember waiting 3 hours at a friend's house who had cable and had MTV just so I could see that video.
Oh,
And I remember after watching it, asking myself at 10 o'clock at night, am I now going to have to wait 3 more hours to see that video? But what caught me, certainly you've got the Vincent Price speak over at the end. You've got the creatures coming up from the grave. So you've got all the horror tropes reflected in a 8-minute video, so incredibly done, where the girl is screaming. We're going back to the girl holding on to the guy back in the day, and then she holds on to Michael. Then Michael turns around, and of course he's now the vampire or the creature, not the vampire, but the creature. And you see the camera doing a whole vertigo thing with her spinning. I think there was so many nods and tropes to the horror industry that were done. Was it John Landis? I think that did produce the video. And the song is great. I mean, it's catchy. Let's be honest. I mean, you've got Michael Jackson, you've got Vincent Price doing the voiceover. You've got a great story. You've got phenomenal special effects, and you've got the production quality that Michael Jackson puts on. And we all love horror. So for me, it was the whole package.
It's also very fun to watch because I mean, if you think about it, if you were, let's say, a 10-year-old child watching it, it probably would have been a wee bit frightening. However, it was done so masterfully that anybody could watch that. But no, I remember waiting because it was such a long video and they had designated times in which they would air it. So, and I think at one point it was like 2 or 3 times a day, and you had to tune in for a specific time to watch it.
There was a warning. I just thought about this. I think there was a warning in front of the video too.
Oh,
there was.
Because it was creepy.
Right.
Well, it also depicted a lot. I mean, without it being over the top gory, I mean, there was some elements of gore involved. I mean, you can't have zombies dancing around and like this werewolf creature without having an element of gore involved. So I can imagine that was very frightening for kids, especially if mom was one of those people who would their kids in front of the TV and like, here, Michael Jackson's coming on. Watch this, you'll be fine. No nightmares. Don't worry about that. You're good. Because nobody associated Michael Jackson at that point with horror. You associated him with pop music and soul music and the Jackson 5. I mean, he was, that's what I thought of.
Yeah, it was he just moved through genres.
And I thought that the makeup effects and the character development that he did in an 8-minute stretch. I mean, if you think about, you saw and knew everything about what was going on for the most part. I mean, it was depicted really in just a short amount of time. So that's absolutely stunning. And then when you can get somebody like Vincent Price, I love everything about Vincent Price. So yeah, if you can get Vincent Price involved in it, that was just icing on the cake. I mean, master of horror right there. I mean, there's not a top rung in my opinion.
Agreed. And it is time for the end of our panel because we've got, I know, I'm sad, but we've got Fanatic Forum with George Bueller coming up next, and he's going to have Janet and Marthias Wade talking about their Toshigawa universe. So that's pretty exciting. DL, thank you for joining us. Mark, thank you for
having me.
Thank you, guys.
DL, where can people find you?
So you can generally find me on the Facey Space and the Instagrams under at DL Memphis. I do have a TikTok, which I don't really use. Every now and then you can find me on Geeky Gothic Gamer Girl TikTok when
Yes.
we're out doing stuff together. But yeah, that's generally where you can find me. I'm not hard to stalk, but I'm also not easy to stalk. So there's that.
So lightly stalk her
Lightly.
and, thread that needle.
Absolutely.
Thank you all for tuning in. We've got a whole weekend of fun, and check our donate links. If you have a few dollars, throw them our way. Otherwise, just share away. And thank you all. Have a great
all.
night.
Absolutely.
DL,
Thank you. Have a good night. Well, thank you.
The Multiverse Fundraiser is partnering with Comic Books for Kids to raise money for their cause. Their mission is to provide comic books to children in hospitals and cancer centers across the United States, Canada, and the UK. We believe in the importance of providing stories that promote hope and bravery to kids who are facing things that are scarier than any supervillain. And we truly believe in this cause. To donate, you can either go to our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/The Multiverse Fundraiser or directly to comicbooksforkids.org.
The Multiverse Fundraiser would like to thank our sponsors: Earth Dog Studios, Clobbern Comics, The Art of Brian Rodman, Studio Moonfall, Elusive Comics, and of course, the Phoenix Sisters Entertainment Network for hosting this event. Learn how to support these businesses on the MVFR website.